Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another movie review for you all. Now today's movie that I'll be reviewing is a film that has become one of my most recent favourites, and it's one that I can't really stop watching at the moment, and it is of course the classic Ealing Studios comedy film The Ladykillers, starring Alec Guinness, Katie Johnson, Peter Sellers, Herbert Lloyd, Cecil Parker and Danny Green. Basically this film centres around the very sinister Professor Marcus taking advantage of this very sweet little old lady, played by Katie Johnson, Mrs. Wilberforce, and she is used, and her home is used and rented out by Professor Marcus and his band of criminal associates in order for them to pull off the very sophisticated robbery at King's Cross Station in London. And they masquerade themselves as an amateur band of musicians while they are staying at her home. But it wouldn't be a comedy if it didn't go horribly wrong somehow, and of course it does. But I will leave that for you guys to watch and see how that unfurls, because I think that will obviously provide a lot more laughs and be able for you to enjoy it more rather than me totally spoiling it. So without further ado, there's the sort of summary out of the way, so I'll just get straight to the analysis. Now I think the heart and the soul of this film is the performances. There's a great sort of funny tinkling little score, there's great setting, but at the heart of it is the really masterful comedy that comes in both written and physical form and is used incredibly by the actors, particularly Alec Guinness in the role of Professor Marcus. He's got this very creepy praying smile and he's just absolutely masterful in this film. He's one of those actors that, even though he's very capable of doing, fantastic physical comedy like the rest of the people in this film, he's one of those people that can induce a laugh just by a look. And I think that, the combination of that very creepy smile, those protruding teeth, really, really does make you just fall about with laughter in this film. He's incredibly expressive and emotive with his face, and I think that is one of the reasons why he is just absolutely brilliant in this film. He's very creepy, he's very sort of manipulative, and it serves for some absolutely brilliant laughs in this film. He just brings a really fantastic performance amongst his performing cast, and he, stands out brilliantly. You really can't take your eyes off him when he's in a scene. I think he really is at the forefront of this film, and he isn't eclipsed by anyone else. I think he really is the sort of reason why this film is held together and why it's so funny. I think he probably provides most of the laughs, and obviously he has a larger role, but at the same time he really holds himself up, and his sort of creepy portrayal of Professor Marcus is stunning. I love it so much. Another person in this film that deserves a lot of credit is Katie Johnson as Mrs. Wilberforce. She's a very sweet, albeit a little bit annoying old lady who is very naive, and she sort of welcomes these criminals, they're criminals unbeknownst to her, into her home, and she's a little bit interfering and she's very chaos inducing without herself actually knowing it. So that sort of juxtaposition of accidental comedy is very prominent in this film, and it's brilliantly portrayed by Katie Johnson as Mrs. Wilberforce. Now another person I want to mention in this film, this review really is all about the performances because it's so important in this film, is Peter Sellers as Harry Robinson, the sort of nervous, scattered teddy boy. And Peter Sellers is one of my favourite actors of all time. He really is. I love him so much, and this is one of his earlier roles, but you can still see that absolutely stunning, masterful element of comedy in his role. He can be cool and collected one minute, but he can be very sort of afraid, squeaky, and sort of quite panicked the next. And it's kind of that whole facade of a criminal that is sort of lifted when things get too real, and I think he really portrays that perfectly. One of my favourite scenes with him in is actually the escaped parrot scene. which involves one of Mrs. Wilberforce's precious pet parrots on the loose in the house, and poor Harry, aka Peter Sellers, has the unwanted job of having to get it down off the top of a wardrobe, and a whole stream of chaos ensues, and it's just brilliant. I think he's absolutely hilarious, and he brings, again, a lot of laughs. I think in the rest of the cast, aside from Alec Guinness, he really stands out. Another person I love in this film is Herbert Lloyd. He's kind of the straight man also, almost. He's very sort of cool, and he's very, you know, sinister and gangsterish. He really wants to just push this mission forward, get things over and done with, and do anything he can to, you know, complete the mission, as it were, even if it means, you know, bumping off Mrs. Wilberforce in the, you know, in the meantime. And I think, you know, he really does temper this very chaotic film with his really sort of sly portrayal. He's the sort of mediator in the group, but I think he fares incredibly well in this film, and he's a very sort of interesting, very intriguing character, and I think, you know, he brings another very quirky element in his own sort of cool, calm, collected manner. Of course, next there's Cecil Parker as Major. He's sort of the first to crack when things start going a little bit awry, but that makes him, you know, very funny, and he's got this very interesting, nervous quality to him that again provides, you know, a few chuckles. And his character is, even though each one is different, they mix incredibly well with each other. Somehow it all fits, and it ends up just being incredibly weird, but working in the most unexpected way, and it's just perfect in the end. And finally we have Danny Green, who is the bumbling, dim-witted one round, who ends up becoming like Mrs. Wilberforce in the way that he just causes chaos without realizing it, without real meaning. And I think again, his slow sort of dumb tone really does induce some laughs in this film, and I think again his character, even though it's completely different to all of the others, slots brilliantly within the film. Now, I think the comedy in this film fares extremely well even today. I think it's a sort of quirky, charming look into 1950s London that makes it interesting, and even though it's based around a robbery, it's still got this very charming quality to it. But the comedy is so clever, and it's so excellently portrayed by its cast and in its writing that it holds up even today, even after God knows how long it's been since its release. I still find it incredibly funny. I laugh out loud at this film, and I don't know how you couldn't. I think it's incredibly clever, and yeah. Even small things like the very calm Boccherini score juxtaposed with the, mad chaos in this film, that sort of tinkling violin placed over this, mad film just adds, a real clever element of hilarity, and it induces a laugh. Another thing I love about this film is the setting. Mrs. Wilberforce's very higgledy-piggledy, very slanted, lopsided house, as well as the sort of very bleak train station and railroad track at the back of it. It's very interesting. Again, it's that sort of nod to 1950s industrial London. There's a sort of interesting bleakness about it. It's very cool to watch, but it serves its purpose brilliantly well in the film. And for that reason, when you're watching the setting, the score, the cast, the writing, everything, although it's this very samey comedy, just goes together in the most brilliant manner that you probably aren't expecting, but everything seems to fit incredibly well. I think this is a film that I will just end up going back to time and time again. I know there's been a remake of it starring Tom Hanks. Don't know if I'm going to bother with that. It's probably a good film. I know it's like a different setting. It's like, it's American. I think it's by the Coen brothers. But I don't know, I just love this original so much that I'm not sure if I actually want to deviate from it. I'll probably give the remake a go another time, but I'm really not interested for now. I'd really just rather stick with this one because I think the performances in it are just so legendary, and the actual film itself is just hilariously funny. With some of my favourite actors in it, and I really can't imagine moving away from it. I think if you are a fan of the sort of classic, classic Hollywood comedies, you should definitely give this a go. I think if you're branching out and wanting to try something new, then give this a go because it's very funny and it might surprise you. But I think no matter what kind of films you're into and what kind of, you know, ideas you might have about old comedy films, I think you should try it because it's more than likely going to make you laugh. And I think that's what the most brilliant thing is about this film. Its performances are timeless, they're absolutely hilarious, and it's just coupled with some fantastic writing that really does withstand the test of time. So for that reason, I'm going to give this film 5 out of 5 stars. I really cannot fault it personally. You guys might differ to me in your opinion, and that's perfectly fine. It might not be for everyone. There's some definite, British humour to it, but I think that's incredibly funny, and I think that the plot is enough for really everyone to grasp, understand, and end up loving the performances in this film. It's really fantastic. I cannot fault it. So that is my take on The Ladykillers. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Remember, you can request any movies for me to review on this channel by commenting below or messaging me on my Tumblr, but that is it for now. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye. Quick mention, this isn't sponsored, but for any fans of Peter Sellers like I am, I love him, amazing, one of my favourite actors, this book by Roger Lewis, Life and Death of Peter Sellers, which is what the film The Life and Death of Peter Sellers starring Geoffrey Rush was based on, you should definitely give it a go. I mean, it's like 1,000 pages, it's pretty much a brick of a book, but it's incredibly interesting, and it gives you the insight into the life of a very flawed comedy genius. So for any people who are a fan of Mr. Sellers like I am, give it a try. It's a great read. But that's it. Just wanted to add that. Do with that what you will. But yeah, thought it was appropriate for this review. But that is all. Bye guys.